Hi, welcome to my show, Olio. My name is Susan Rushton, and as always, I need to explain what Olio means. One definition is that it's short for olla podrida, which is Spanish for rotten bowl, which I just get always such a kick out of. It's a Spanish-Portuguese dish with essentially everything in the world in it. Pork in all its iterations, pig's ears, bacon, sausage, among other things. Chicken, chickpeas, cabbage, carrots, beans, onions, and garlic, of course. As I said, everything in the world in it except Cracker Jacks and crab cakes. That's one definition. Another definition is that olio comes in between acts of a melodrama. So you might have somebody juggling, you might have somebody singing, you might have somebody doing a skit, and none of it has anything to do with anything else, and none of it has anything to do with the melodrama. So in other words, it's apples, oranges, and a monkey wrench. So welcome to my monkey wrench. Today my guest is a man I'd recommend, and I recommend him, I admire him, and I envy him, his enthusiasm. And although I'm plenty enthusiastic too, especially about this guy. This is Bill Poindexter. He is a managing editor of the Auburn Journal. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's great to be here.
Oh, great. I'm happy to hear that. And before we go any further, we need to explain where you are. 1030 High Street in Auburn. That's the Auburn Journal's office. And you can contact Bill anytime. His phone number is 530-852-0256. And he has an email, billp@goldcountrymedia.com. So, again, welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
Why are you at the Auburn Journal?
I'm at the Auburn Journal because I just keep working for newspapers. I've been a newspaper worker since I was 19 years old, and I actually figured this out a few days ago, too. So I started in the 70s, so I'm in my 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 10s, 20s. I'm in my sixth decade working in print journalism.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Why print journalism?
I got hooked into it when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. When I had my first job, I had my first byline when I was 19 years old working for the Manteca Bulletin.
Can you remember the story?
I don't remember the story.
Okay.
I want to say it was well, now they call it middle school. Back then it was junior high. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was a 7th, 8th grade. It was definitely a sporting event. I don't remember what sport. And the little league down there for all the local schools was called the Acorn League.
Okay.
I know people in Ripon are fond of acorns. I think they grew up there.
Okay.
It was called the Acorn League.
Okay.
But I don't remember specifically what sport it was. It had to be in the spring. It was in April. So I'm guessing it still could have been basketball or something like that.
Okay. But so you did sports then, and did you continue doing sports?
I've still done sports probably for 95% of my career.
Okay.
I was a sports writer at the Manteca Bulletin, and then I was a sports editor at another little paper in Manteca. Newspapers were so prominent back then that a little town like Manteca with 40 or 50,000 people could have 2 newspapers in town, just like L.A.
Yeah.
And from there I went on to work. I worked at the Stockton Record twice, and I was an assistant sports editor, and I worked at the Sacramento Bee 3 times, and I was involved in sports there. Most recently as sports editor at the Sacramento Bee in late 2019. And I was a sports editor of the Modesto Bee from 2005 to 2008. And since then, I've gotten more away from sports, and I've taken on roles as an editor and a managing editor at smaller papers, and most recently and currently at the Auburn Journal. Working for Gold Country Media.
Yeah. Okay. So, people, I'm thinking that people are hearing, gosh, you were a sports editor. You did sports stories. So what the heck are you doing? Tell me the connection between managing editor and writing stories and sports. And what is similar about those jobs?
What's similar about them, Susan, is that whether you're doing sports or business or features or a gossip column or a crime scene or a play review or a movie review or a concert or business story, is that you need to get a story written and filed in time to get it into the newspaper. It's a little different in this day and age in that we have websites that we like to post our stories to, not necessarily immediately unless it's a breaking story, as we call it. But we want to keep our website moving. And by the way, the Auburn Journal's website is auburnjournal.com. And you can also visit the company Gold Country Media at goldcountrymedia.com. And we encourage traffic, notably in the Placer County and the Auburn areas, because anything you want to know about Auburn is going to be at auburnjournal.com.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, and I'm assuming that just because it's a sports story doesn't mean that you don't want to get things straight, right?
Yes. There's a saying, and I don't want to offend anybody, and I'm really not trying to, but I'm probably going to a little bit, but there's an old saying that goes, if you sent a sports writer out to a crime scene or to a city council meeting, they could turn around a story, as we'd like to say. You can turn it around, you can write it. Mm-hmm. But if you took someone with no sports reporting experience and sent them to a basketball game, what do I do?
Yes. Where do I look?
So exactly. So in that regard, there are great differences there between sports and every other type of story that you can write for a publication.
Okay.
So those are the differences. But you're a team and you are one in that we're all trying to get our stories filed, edited thoroughly, and pictures decided upon and cropped and tweaked and shaped so you can put them in the paper and on your website to present them to your readership.
Yeah, okay. What does it take to be a good journalist?
It takes, well, one, you have to learn a lot. And I pride myself on being a student of the game, so to speak, now. I learn something new about journalism every single day. I can't tell you what I learned yesterday, but I know I learned something about it.
Okay.
I will figure out a way that if this worked for me in 1984 and it doesn't work in 2022, I got to figure out a way to make it work. So it benefits me and my team and our newspaper, so we can get things done a little more cleaner and a little more timely. So I'm always learning, and you have to always be willing to learn something about the game, because the journalism game is forever changing, as we've seen.
Yeah, this is being the 21st century, right. And you started in the 20th. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a couple of ways that it's different?
Well, one, we have the internet.
Okay.
And I remember 1996, I was at the Modesto Bee, and a gentleman who used to work at the paper by the name of Glenn Scott sent out a company-wide email to everyone, and I believe it said, I can't believe I remember this, it said, "Congratulations, kids, you are the parents of an online newspaper." And that's when the Modesto Bee added modbee.com in the summer of 1996. If memory serves me right, and I believe it does. So now we have the internet. So for little papers,
so you're excuse me,
okay.
I'm interrupting you.
Mm-hmm.
You that's a date that you remember. It sounds like it was unnerving and exciting at the same time, which is why you remember it.
Yes, I would say unnerving and exciting, and for me, very curious. And I think maybe now looking back, for a lot of people, hindsight, Monday morning quarterbacking, in that newspapers came out with their websites, but if we look at the way things are now, we didn't know how to treat them. We didn't know how to present them, and we didn't know how to sell them.
Yeah. And now you do.
And now we do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately now people are used to getting their news for free in many cases.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna pay to get behind that paywall.
Okay. But
So
it's experience. Yeah.
this is true.
This is what others have done. Oh wow! Wasn't that gorgeous?
Right.
Okay, we need to do better, and
Yes.
certainly you do better.
We pay as much as the newspaper is my baby, and one of the reasons I got hired by Gold Country Media is because the newspaper needs to be my baby, and it always has been, and it is now, and it's always going to be as long as I'm in this business. But I also understand that the future and the now is online. So the luxury that we have at a twice weekly newspaper like the Journal is that we can have a fire. I hate to say that, but that's a common example in these parts, is that we have smoke, we have a fire. So we will put out what I call a Facebook blast. We'll get to the scene, take a photo of smoke, flames, firemen and firewomen at work, and we'll blast out on Facebook and say, this is why you're seeing the smoke. It's here, and this is what's going on. This many acres have burned. We're going to give you a complete story shortly, and a more complete story in your next Auburn Journal. And even though we only have 2 publications a week, we can be a 24/7 news cycle source of information to our readership. And again, auburnjournal.com, goldcountrymedia.com, and you can visit our Facebook page. We get a lot of engagement on the Auburn Journal's Facebook page, a ton of engagement. So I would encourage everyone to read us there also.
And when you say a ton of engagement, what do you mean?
People read our stories.
Yeah.
People visit and people comment.
Okay.
People share. We covered a Black Lives Matter protest put on by a fascinating, well beyond her years, teenage young lady in June of 2020. I believe it was. It was June 1st, if I'm not mistaken, across the street from the historic courthouse.
This guy has a great memory.
My
I'm
memory.
so envious.
I'm so thankful.
Well, yes. God.
And Stacey Adams, one of our young reporters, who I think the absolute world of, reported the story, took photos, one of which won a CNPA, California News Publishers Association award. And she's not a photographer. She'll be the first one to tell you that. She's a photographer now because she won a CNPA award for her photo taken at that protest. I, meanwhile, in addition to hanging out with her because we were unsure about these protests, this thing could go sideways. Despite the police fire presence that we did and did not know about, visible and invisible, but they were there, I thought, I better go with her. So I went, and I might as well make myself useful. So I shot Facebook Live. And in an hour of that protest, our engagement, people watching and people engaging, people sharing, reached, I believe, 56,000 people. And that is for the Auburn Journal, which I believe we print 9,000 newspapers twice a week. And so about 6 times what we print in newspapers, we were able to reach via Facebook Live, watching the protest. I believe it got shared somewhere between 450 and 500 times. So I watched it. I wanted Susan to see it, so I shared it with Susan. And then Susan probably turned around and shared it with someone else.
Man, look what's going on in Auburn.
And it got likes, the thumbs up, it got hearts, it got the loves, it got the cares. It got a ton of comments, lots of comments. I say a ton of a lot, don't I?
Oh, well.
I say a ton of times.
Well, as long as you say it this way.
Exactly.
If you say it in print, no. Your editor would say, well, no, you've said it already.
I would change that, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another word I say a lot, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would absolutely change it a ton of times.
Okay.
But those are the many ways, Susan, that we reach out to people now the way we didn't when I began in this business in 1979. And even when the first newspaper I was at that went internet, we've changed even since then.
Yeah.
We've just evolved in so many ways.
So as I've always said I consider myself a 20th century person, but that hadn't occurred to me that with print and in the 21st century, you can have the online presence in 2 ways and get people's attention in 3 ways. Online twice in 2 ways, and the print section in another. So that should be celebrated. I'm thrilled. Yeah.
Absolutely. While newspapers have suffered because of the internet, and I can't deny that it's happened. Even so, there are still so many more ways for people to engage with Gold Country Media or whatever newspaper it is people subscribe to. You can subscribe to many newspapers through your phone.
Yeah.
Digital subscriptions are very inexpensive, and I would encourage people to reach out to auburnjournal.com if they want a digital subscription, because you'll get news now, and we keep our website fresh as each day goes on. If it's a breaking story, the breaking story. If it's the river fire, it goes out there now.
Yeah.
As soon as we...
And it keeps breaking.
And it keeps breaking. And it keeps
You add to
developing.
it,
It keeps
yeah.
building. And by the time you get your Auburn Journal on Wednesday or the weekend, you have the big, full, complete, thorough story of everything we've been reporting and compiling for the past 1 or 2 or 3 days, which makes the newspaper so much more keepsake in that they had one picture with the story of the river fire here, and they had another one that night and another one the next day. And when you pick up your Auburn Journal, you'll have a whole picture page of the river fire. Sadly, but those serve as remembrances and memories for people. Remember when, 50 years from now, remember when? The river fire.
Yeah.
And people do hold even tragic events like that close to their hearts. And it's the newspaper and not the internet that is going to capture that for you.
Right.
As we say in the newspaper business, once it's in the newspaper, it's official.
Yeah.
If it's in the newspaper, it's official.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. What do you like best about working as a journalist? What are some of the things you like best? I hate that first question.
Well, I'll tell you what, Susan, as much as the stress can get to me and get my heart pounding in a probably not good or unhealthy way, I enjoy the rush. When we get a call, as we did last week, another reporter, Tracy Newell, is a
Also fabulous.
seasoned reporter, very good at what she does. And if I hadn't said it, I love our team. I really, really do. Along with our new sports reporter, Jordan Georgeson, just a phenomenal team to coach and teach and work with. But back to your question, when Tracy said, we have a plane on a house in North Auburn.
You have a play?
We have a plane, an airplane.
Oh, yes.
You saw that story.
Yes, I did.
You read the Auburn Journal.
Oh, yes, I do.
We have a plane on a house in North Auburn. Boom. That's when my journalistic senses just go. The engine is on. What are we doing? And there's an interesting little story that ties in with that too. Is that Stacy was getting ready to clock out, and I believe she had another assignment, so she can't go. Tracy was on a story. Santa's going to ride with the Auburn Fire Department. Okay. Well, Jordan was in the office doing something else. Jordan, can you take that story? Yes, I can do that. So Jordan switched gears and 5:30 went out and caught Santa on the fire truck. Tracy says, okay, I'm going to go out there. I have a couple questions. And I answered them. These are going to be your contacts. And in the meantime, Stacy fired up a Word doc, and I called Mary Eldridge, who's our CAL FIRE information officer, and she fed me some information. This is what we know right now. So I put her on speaker, and Tracy's writing down notes. It's on the 9500 block of Miracle Drive. I still remember.
Yeah.
And then I went and looked at it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's recent.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not at all surprised.
Exactly. Stacy, meanwhile, who's not going to be a part of the coverage, starts to write down these notes. And she says, Bill, I'll take this and turn it around, and we'll get this online and on Facebook right now. Okay. So Stacy's working one end. Jordan is getting ready to switch gears and go on another story assignment. Tracy's packing up her camera and her computer and all her goods to go to the scene. And then while she's en route, we're going to get this online and tell people there's a plane on a house in North Auburn. We're going to bring you more at auburnjournal.com as soon as we know more.
Yeah.
And when Tracy headed out the door and we had the story posted, and I started reaching out to the fire chief and Placer County Sheriff's Office, Highway Patrol, Auburn PD, any agency that might be involved, probably all of them at one point for starters. And I'm reaching out to all them. Jordan, who's 25 years old and still a college student, says, wow, that's the first time I've ever been a part of some breaking news like that. was fascinating. And I said, that's how our team works.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of a longer story about the lines of the political lines in Placer County. There was this year-long story.
You're talking about redistricting.
Yeah.
That is one of the many projects in just the short 2 years that I have been in the Auburn Journal, one of my most proud moments, because it involved everyone on the team, and it sent a message and hopefully reinforced a message to the people of Placer County, and notably Auburn and all of our surrounding circulation areas, that if we're relevant because we're going to be your main source of information in this area. No one else is going to do it. It's going to be the Auburn Journal, or it's going to be nobody. The only time TV is going to show up, I'm not going to badmouth media or TV, but the only time TV is going to show up is when there's a tragedy. And I'm at the Sacramento TV.
Yeah, okay.
I don't mean here.
Okay.
So people need to count on us, and I want them to count on us to be the source of information. And redistricting caught fire, not literally in Auburn. I should
Right.
watch how I say that, but yeah, it did. It took on a life of its own. Stacey Adams wrote her first story. We talked about it one day last week. And she said, I wrote my first story on redistricting in January of 2021. So this story lasted literally an entire year.
Yeah.
It took on new characters, it took on new faces and voices. Public comment grew and grew and grew. They were looking at a map, or a couple of potential maps for the new districts that would serve Placer County based on the results of the 2020 census. And they ended up looking at 17 maps, I do believe. They gave them all different names, AB1 and P2 and Hybrid 2.0 and all kinds of fun, little interesting, creative names. And they haggled and argued over them and bickered over them, and accusations were made and shenanigans were alleged politically. And and we were there at the Auburn Journal. Stacey Adams was there to chronicle every move that was made, every step that was taken, every word spoken. And we knew through our email contacts that increased, our phone calls that increased, our letters to the editor that increased, that I need something said, done, I need something to be put out there. I'm going to contact the Auburn Journal. They contacted us. And that's what I loved about it. I believe it did show some people that we're serious about what we do. We're not Mayberry, not to make fun of Mayberry.
Right.
But,
Well, yeah. Okay. But we're a community, and that attracted the attention of the big guys.
Yes.
Sacramento.
Yes. The TV media got involved at the very end when a final decision was made on what map they were going to vote to serve as the new districts for the next 10 years. The Sacramento Bee jumped on board at some point, about halfway or so through, with a series of editorials, and at one point mentioned the Auburn Journal and Gold Country Media for its coverage about holding local politicians accountable for what they do. And they said some really nice things about the Auburn Journal. And
As well they should.
thank you very, very much.
As well they should.
I am very proud of the work that we did.
Yeah.
So it was nice for the big fish in the pond, which in these parts is the Sacramento Bee, to acknowledge the work that we did.
Yeah.
And we did. Stacey did a phenomenal job, and it spoke volumes to me that people would send us emails afterward and say, "Hey, thank you for the work that you did."
Yeah. Yeah.
Politicians are always very, very gracious to us. The people on the board of supervisors, always very professional with us. They speak to us. They don't not answer their phone. They answer their phone. They get back to Stacey. They get back to me.
Oh, good.
They contribute guest editorials, and I give them that forum because that's what our paper's for. You want to write an editorial, you're a supervisor, you want to write an editorial piece, write it, I'll put it in the newspaper for you. And I encourage people, I wrote a column about this, write me a letter to the editor. Why don't you go out and cover this? Well, I can't but you can write a letter to the editor.
Yeah.
Say it in your words.
Okay.
And as long as there are no bad words that don't belong in a newspaper, I'll put it in the newspaper for you.
Okay.
So it spoke volumes with me that the people who were involved in the redistricting, notably from the public standpoint, and who had a hand in drawing these new maps and things, reached out to us during and afterward to say, thank you for doing this.
Oh, good.
And I sincerely appreciated that. I really, really did. And that told me that we do belong here. People do count on us.
Yes.
We are the source of information.
Yeah.
We're going to present the supervisor's side and their reasons and their quotes, the public side, their reasons and their, and their quotes, and all the maps. And we're going to publish the maps on our website and in our newspapers. And you, the reader, get to decide what you think when this is all said and done
Right.
with. And I'm just so happy with our coverage.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it.
It sounds like you should teach journalism.
Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll do that
Okay.
in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
I'm going to be teaching for the first time in my life. This has been a dream of mine for a long, long, long time. I'm going to teach what the code is J30, Journalism 30. I'm going to teach news writing at Sacramento State beginning January the 24th.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased.
Why are you so pleased?
Because I've wanted to teach for a long, long, long time. I first got the idea when I went back to school in my 20s. I didn't get my bachelor's until I was 28, after I got married. And in that window between junior college and Sacramento State, I worked in the field. I worked at the Stockton Record part-time, and I was working at the other little newspaper in Manteca where I served as sports editor. And by being in the field and then landing a job at the Sacramento Bee part-time while I was a student at Sacramento State, it enlightened me to the fact that, I can teach these kids. I can teach them what I've learned so far, and I can teach them based on what we do at the Bee, which is maybe a little different than some of the things the textbook is showing us. Mm-hmm. And I can put my spin on it. I can share my war stories, if you will, about this is what happened to us on election night one time.
Yeah.
And I've served sort of as a coach and a mentor, as well as being a manager and an editor for the past 20 or 25 years in the field. And
So you know what you're talking about.
I've always just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I believe I know a thing or two about the
Yeah,
business.
and it's obvious you enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's been obvious since the first time I met you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, my guest has been Bill Poindexter, editor of the Auburn Journal. He's you can be found at 1030 High Street in Auburn. His phone number, his specific phone number, and
My office
you
phone.
said that you will answer the phone, and that's why you want me to give people your phone number.
Call me on my office phone. You'll get a real live person.
Yeah.
If you don't, you'll get my voicemail, and I will call you back.
Okay, so 530-852-0256, or you can email him billp@goldcountrymedia.com, billp@goldcountrymedia.com. Bill, it's been a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you very much for joining me.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Susan. I was looking forward to it, and it's been fun. Hopefully, maybe we can do this again.
Okay.
Thank you for
good.
having me on.
Thank you. And thank you very much.